Hi there, just hopping on to do a video alongside my 5-year roadmap to nearly 50k. It's like 48 and a half, I think, turnover per year, because I know it's really, really easy for me to sit here and say, this is what I did, this is how I did it. But if you don't see the figures that were happening behind the scenes, it's not a very truthful picture, or it's not a very clear picture. So I think you'll find this really interesting. Hopefully it will put into perspective how hard it can be sometimes to start a business, but it's all worth it in the end. Okie dokie. I know your time is precious, so we're going to fly through it really quickly. So I've kept all my figures on a free package called QuickFile. And I've done that since the beginning of my business with the dog and I. My accountant introduced it to me. So everything was digital, which is why it's easy for me to pull these figures out. There's a few, just quick explanation of what is what. So turnover is the total amount of sales that you've made in a year. So all the money you've got coming in from your sales. Gross profit is the turnover minus the cost of making those products. So for soap, that would be your sodium hydroxide, your oils, your essential oils, and your packaging materials. So your labels, etc. So those are the only things that come off to make your gross profit. And then your net profit is your gross profit minus all your other business operating costs. So that will be the cost of your website, it will be your hosting fees for your website, your business travel, so every trip to the post office, I logged that, 45p a mile. The cost of my postage, which went up and up and up obviously each year, training costs, equipment, absolutely everything, even a percentage of my household bills, because I was using one room in the house at that stage when I started, and also percentage of my mobile phone. I claim 90% of my mobile phone bill because I use it for business stuff all the time. So that's how that works. Okie dokie. So 2016-17 was about 9 months because I didn't start until the June, and obviously the tax year runs April to April. So turnover was £739.90. I'm reading this off the screen, which is why I keep looking down. So it was really low that first 9 months, and it was very much a little bit on the website, from social media, but very limited. I went to a couple of events. I was selling Paul Balm on eBay at that time. I didn't make any money at all because obviously I had my setup costs. I started off with, I put £500 into the business. By the end of that first 9 months, I was at a net loss of £957.53. That was because I was accumulating stock levels at that time, so it doesn't take into account the value of stock that I would have had. And I just paid myself my first month's money in the March before that tax year ended, and it would have only been £30-40, I can't even remember now. And that was because I read a book called Profit First by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, it's Michael Michalwicz or something along those lines, but if you Google Profit First, you'll find it. But really, it's a very simple process. It's a case of taking your money that's coming in, splitting it into any tax that you might have to pay, because I was paying tax on everything because I was working as well. The cost of making your products, so take that out as well. And then take a small percentage for yourself. So it might only be 2 or 3% of your turnover to begin with. And then whatever's left, you've got to grow your business. And all because you're not doing it as it's not for fun, it's not a hobby, it's about paying yourself something, even if it's only £5 or £10, and then everything else you reinvest in the business. So that's what I did. 2017-2018, so turnover, that had gone up considerably to £9,785.63. Gross profit through £3,380, 34, and net profit was still only £396.13. That's because that year I spent a lot of money in the business on things. So I spent £373 on business training. That was a monthly membership that I was in, and an in-person event that I attended. I invested in professional photography. I also bought some of my own photography equipment. So I bought a decent camera, put that through the business because that's why I bought it. My travel costs that year were £779.84, so I was delivering to some local businesses, just very small amounts, and I counted every post office run. So the travel costs really do add up. So if you're not already putting those through as your expensive, please do that. My postage bill for my orders was £596.85, and as I said, I was claiming for 90% of my phone bill and part of my gas and electric bills. At this stage, my ingredient costs were still higher because I was only obviously ordering small quantities, so I was having to pay more. At this stage, I spent a lot of time on social media. I really got into the whole dog world, particularly on Instagram. I got to know a lot of other small businesses. And I kind of teamed up with some other small dog businesses, and we formed a bit of a pod on Instagram and really supported each other, and we got to know, I got a lot of other followers through that. A lot of those people who followed me then went on to buy my products for their clients. So I had a lot of dog groomers, not particularly because I was a dog groomer, but just because they are a large part of the doggy industry. So they will quite often buy my products as client Christmas gifts and recommending me to others. So that's how I was doing okay. And I'd say at this point, my wholesale, I can't remember what the wholesale was, but it was getting to a much higher percentage of my sales. Probably 50, 60% was wholesale. Then I was still dog grooming at that time because obviously my net profit, £396.13, wasn't a lot. But I did spend a lot of money on, as I say, things in the business, which is not you didn't necessarily have to do that, but I did because I had this longer term vision. And I was fortunate, I was working in dog grooming as well. 2018, 2019, this is when things really got interesting. Turnover 29,000, just over. Gross profit just under 20,000, and net profit of 8,908. In percentages, I'm introducing a percentage on this figure because I think it's quite interesting. So 31%, that is the percentage. So that's what my net profit is as a percentage of my turnover. So I was getting profit of 31% of my turnover. My turnover jumped in this year, partly because I gave up the dog grooming and I really committed to the dog and I, but also because I really drilled down into marketing and business strategy. I spent £871 on training. A lot of that was on one course that I bought. It was about £600. It was in dollars. It was an Australian lady, so it worked out about £600, and it was a really in-depth course on how to do SEO, marketing, email marketing, or how to set up all the emails. How to do product descriptions, imagery, all sorts. It was really a lot of information in there, probably a bit like my boot camp. I have a busy family life and I need to concentrate to get stuff done. So I booked myself on a weekend away in Wales, booked a little cottage, put it through as a business expense because that's why I did it. Took the dog with me, left everyone else at home, and I went and implemented, watched all the videos and implemented as much of the tech as I could at that stage from the course that I'd purchased. That was amazing. It really probably was a turning point for me because spending a whole weekend on working on the business and not in it was transformational. It really was. Okie dokie. So around November of that year, I won an award. It wasn't an award I put in for. It was one that they'd obviously picked me out on social media. It was an Animal Health Award. I can't even remember the company now. It's still on my leaflets. They're one of these companies, a bit like Lux, where they tell you you've won an award and you can apply for it. Not apply for it, but accept it. And then you're allowed to use that on your literature. But then they try and sell you space in their magazine, which you don't have to take. You don't have to take any of those packages. If they've given you the award, you can use it. So that's what I did, and I put award-winning on everything. So award-winning on my leaflets, on my social media, out on my emails, and that changed everything in many ways, because as soon as you've got award-winning on your products, people seem to look at it a little bit differently, even though it's really largely irrelevant, I think. So that was great. And then around that same sort of time, I got my first really big wholesale order. It was for a subscription box for dog groomers. They approached me from social media, and this is where having a really small niche helps, I think, because my niche, there's not many people doing what I was doing, even though it's soap, my niche was dog soaps. So they approached me and asked me to, I can't remember how many soaps it was now, but it was about £1,500 order, which was huge for me for a wholesale order. It still would be, to be honest. I was terrified. I thought, can I make it in the time? Because the time scale was quite tight. But I said yes, and I was making every single day before or after work, and then my family were all helping me with the packaging and everything. I did ask them for an advance to cover materials, because it was a big investment for me at that time, and they said yes, so that was brilliant. They'd give me an advance and then paid the rest on completion. That was catalyst for a lot more orders after that. I had a lot more interest from dog groomers who had received my soap in the subscription box. And a lot of them went on to stock my products. Okay, so that year I spent £177.69 on Facebook advertising as well, which was a complete waste of time because I didn't know what I was doing. But hindsight is a great thing. I spent £2,637 on postage, so my fees were going, well, my costs were going up, and I spent £944 on travel that year, so post office visits, etc. 2019, 2020, here we go again. Another jump in turnover, went up to £37,722. Gross profit, £23,136, and net profit, £14,162. My percent of my turnover, that was now profit, had gone up to 38%. Probably because around this time I think I put my prices up, which I just did it. I didn't tell anyone, I just did it. I had to, because I was doing a lot more wholesale, and for some of my products my profit margins were really low. So I put the prices up, and how I managed that with my wholesalers was I just emailed them and let them know, and I just felt if they continued with me, great. If they didn't, then I needed to make that change. That year I spent £382 on training. It's continuing in the same membership that I was in, business membership, and I think I attended one event as well. I spent £376.36 on advertising, another waste of money, if I'm honest. I had a lot of repeat wholesale, and by this point my business was and still is around 70% wholesale. I would not be where I am without wholesale, which is why I'm a huge advocate for it. Postage was £3,773.68, travel was £1,377.90. So I was going to the post office nearly every day at this point. Okie dokie. Then so 2019, 2020, so I wasn't dog grooming, I'd given that up the year before, but I was still working police force part-time. So I think I was probably doing about 24 hours at that point at work. Then 2020 to 21 was my £48,634 turnover year. That was the highest I got it to. I didn't get it any further than that because I'd started the soap coach at the beginning of 2020, and that took a lot of my energy, and I was sort of switching my attention. So I'd stopped posting on social media for the dog and I was just not actively marketing, and I'm still not actively marketing. I put the odd post on, but I knew I needed to put my energy elsewhere. So by this point, I'm not writing any blog posts, I'm not marketing, I'm not really sending any emails out. It was a COVID year, so that was also a year of mixed fortunes, I think. So turnover, I can't remember if I said, turnover 48,634, gross profit 33,117, and net profit was 25,164. So my net profit at this point was 52% of my turnover. So it was really, really good. Probably a lot of it was because I was doing more retail sales on my website, and I was also buying a lot larger quantities of ingredients, so I was getting them much cheaper. COVID brought me mixed fortunes. Much of my wholesale stopped initially, but then picked up again as my clients moved online and found new ways to sell. And as I said, my retail side picked up as well. Postage costs were £4,694.61, so that's really high. Stripe and PayPal fees, £625.14. I haven't put those in all the others. But it's just, it's good to see roughly, like my Stripe and PayPal fees were high, but not when you look at the turnover. A large part of the profit from that year was then funded the soap coach, which has obviously been quite a costly endeavour. But it meant I could start it and rent the unit, etc., with no loans and no debt. And I'm still debt-free now, which is great. So I'm 3 years in for the soap coach. So my turnover has gone down since with the dog and I, as I said, because I haven't been concentrating on it. I think the following year, 21-22 is about 25,000, and 22-23 was about 14,000. So it's dropped right down. You can see, because I'm not working in it, I'm not advertising, I'm not doing anything, and yeah, I think I could step it up quite quickly again if I needed to. So yeah, that was a real whistle-stop tour. Hopefully you found that really interesting and it's not been too daunting or overwhelming. They say you need 5 years to really get a business going, and I think my 5 years has proved that. It's been hard work. I spent a lot of hours at night time working. I still do. The soap coach is still a work in progress. And to put that in perspective, I have spent probably around £15,000 in business coaching and training in the last 3 years for the soap coach, so that I can put out the courses that I do, the business courses and advice, etc., with a good backing behind it. But I don't begrudge it at all. It's been really, really useful. I've learned so much in so many different areas and it's given me that grounding. So yeah, I think different business, same problems, still investing, still waiting for it to become a really good business. Anyway, I'm going to leave you to it. I know your time is precious, and take care. Give me a shout if you've got any questions on that.